So once again, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. We're going to do a couple items tonight. We're going to learn about 2 more buildings. We're going to have Bill Horton, again, kind of my neighbor, office-wise downtown. Bill's a local planner. When you see newspaper advertisements about this project or that project looking for an approval, probably a half of or a third of those will say, that Bill was involved in some fashion. So he's just kind of a land use planning guy. His responsibilities are to figure out how to utilize the existing classification of land and how to develop something that the property owner might want. So you're welcome to ask him any questions. He's ready for that. He's going to kind of just give us some background on kind of how the development happens in our community and kind of where he envisions West Valley going. Last time we learned about 6 buildings. Tonight we're going to learn about 2 more. Pat's going to give us the first run through on a junior high. Damn. I keep doing it. Steven, I think, is working tonight, so we're going to push the middle school off until next time. And then I'm going to probably do the high school here tonight, just so we can get 2 buildings out of the way. We learned about an elementary school last time, the 6 schools that we use currently for K through 4 education. We're having a little bit of a conversation about K through 5 education as we're coming in, and just that concept and when and how that might be something we want to move towards. Ultimately, though, our mission statement encompasses all of this conversation, all of this discussion. We want to prepare students, a culture of encouragement with challenging coursework and diverse opportunities to create students that are going to compete on the world stage. We have awesome things going on right now. Chris isn't back yet, is he? Is Chris back yet? Chris, as a representative of our community, as our district, was at an international conference sharing kind of the amazing outcomes and performance of our CTE program, learning some new elements that he can engage with our students moving forward. And so from an overall perspective, it's a great opportunity to be here, to have a district that's really looking forward, and a district that's doing an awesome job of educating our students. Through this end, it's our job as a facilities committee to kind of hear where those programs are going and be prepared to motivate our community towards what facilities we need. We might need to modify those in order to have our students' best
Tell me where the directions. That's
Oh, there we go. Okay, so the junior high school was built in 1978, and the upper plaque is the school board members who are all no longer here. So some of the things that I looked at was, first thing I noticed, window areas from the outside were all getting kind of rusty, what, lack of paint or whatever. And the glass appears to be all single pane glass. There's no thermopane glass on the doors, windows, everywhere. There is no wall insulation in the outer wall. It's a single wall building. It's brick. When brick gets cold, it stays cold. When brick gets hot, it stays hot. So all the outer rooms, according to the staff, in the springtime when it gets hot, the outer edge area rooms get hot and they can't cool them, because if they try to cool them, then the interior rooms get freezing cold. Vice versa, in the winter months, the outer rooms are cold, and the inner rooms, if they try to heat the outer rooms, then they get sweltering hot. So they're having trouble finding a balance. And according to the custodial staff, there is no local control for any of the HVAC. It's controlled from a remote facility. There appears to be duct in for inputs and all the ducts, which monitors airflow, heat and cool temperatures and stuff in the ducts, but not in the classrooms. So a couple of the other things that I look at, based on my background being electrical engineer, is safety concerns, and I looked at a few structural concerns. And then on the last levy, there was a storage issue that they wanted for the junior high school. So this is one of the windows that I saw that it's not terrible rusty, but once rust starts, it's hard to get rid of it. And this is into the lunchroom. This is what happens when you have a single paint or a single thickness wall over the years. Moisture gets into the walls, into the grouting for the brick. It leaches the calcium out. Now you have moisture coming into the building, staining these are the exterior walls. These are several different classrooms. The ceiling is showing some, it's kind of hard to see here. See if I can get this thing to work. Up in this area here, you can see the staining in through here. According to the staff, they believe that's condensation and dropping in. I don't know. I didn't open the ceiling up to see if there was what there was there, but they're thinking it might be condensation. So I went up onto the roof, and some of the issues that I saw was the gas lines have never been painted. They're 40 years old and they're rusting. Not critical yet, but the fact is they are rusting. There's missing supports on some of the gas lines. You'll see pictures here of that. And I understand the roof was replaced either last year or a few years ago, something like that. And apparently there was some problems with leakage after it was replaced. The roof is very wavy. There's lots of places where you have a lot of standing water. It doesn't drain well. There's an area there that's a raised area where there's 2 HVAC heating units for the gym. I'll show you that, which there is no railing for safety, so if the staff has to go up there in the winter months, there's about a 6 to 8 foot drop off there that it could slip and fall over. So to me, that's a safety concern. There's an EMT, I saw one piece of EMT, electrical metallic tubing outside. It was running up the wall. It has no supports where it should be. It's not a watertight connector. By code, EMT is supposed to have it strapped, some kind of connector within 1 foot of any coupling. So this is one of the main gas lines running across the roof. And of course, they sit in the snow and whatever, they're rained on snow, and they don't appear to ever have had any kind of a coating. But being a gas line, they can't be galvanized, they have to be black iron. These are where there's Kindorf strap. Oops. We're strong. These are Kindorf. Dang it. These are Kindorf straps for those of you who are familiar with it. It's a strap we use to strap electrical and piping. And the straps are missing. They just wrap around the pipe to support the pipe. So these pipes are just sitting there. And those are gas lines. They're capped off gas lines. Easy fix, but somehow it's been overlooked for I don't know how long. Now this is kind of hard to see, but the drainage here is all full of the stuff from the trees that get blowing around. And these are supposed to be your drains, and then you've got your scupper overflow drains that'll dump water out if it builds up too much. But all around on the roof, I found lots of standing water. Of course, they're going to go up there this spring when they get time and try to clean all the drains, get all the little debris out of the way. But as those fill up in the fall, if they don't get picked up, it'll backflow, and there's lots of areas where the water won't get out to the scuppers, and you have a lot of standing water on the roof. There's that EMT fitting, and notice there's no strapping within a foot from this connector. There's supposed to be a strap here and a strap here by electrical code. I don't know when that was put in. It's obviously something was added at some point in the past. I don't know when. So structural issues, this is where I was a little concerned with. This is a minor situation. There's been a hole drilled in the brickwork for whatever reason, but if it's not being used for something, it should be plugged, because it's a way for moisture, insects, whatever, to gain entry into the building. Along the same wall, there's another one where it's chipped. I don't know, nobody seems to be able to know what it was there for, but again, that could be an easy fix. It just needs to be plugged up so we don't get something getting into the building that way. This is along the outer wall of one of the two, I believe it was 2 classrooms that I saw where they removed the carpeting, which you'll see later is very bad. In an attempt to come up with an alternative to carpet, they painted the floor. But you can see along the wall here, this is the mortar, and you can see this crack here. This building appears to have been a slab building. In other words, they put your plumbing, some of your HVAC, which I'm concerned with, in the ground, and then you pour a slab over it, and then you build walls on top of it. And I believe over the years, this is cracking, and this is a way for moisture to get in from the outside, since this is a single wall building. So up on the roof, there's this perimeter that runs all the way around the building. It's supposedly a decorative kind of a thing. And you can kind of see here, it's not looking real well, and it gets worse. Looks like at some point somebody's tried to patch it, but unfortunately with concrete, once it gets porous like that, it'll start absorbing water. And of course with our winters, it freezes, it cracks, and it's just a yearly cycle. It goes on and on. And this one here is cracking. And fortunately, there's rebar that runs through all these and ties them together. So I don't believe that this block will fall. If it does, it's going to fall onto the roof, not out. But I am concerned at some point some of these deteriorations might start going not onto the roof, but out towards where students might be around the building or faculty. This is some more of that wall. You can see it's getting more and more deteriorated. And one point here, this will go again. You can actually see the rebar in there. Now that rebar is rusting there. Once it's exposed, the rust is just going to follow that rebar, and it's going to keep breaking that apart more and more and more. And at some point, if it gets to the point, and I'm not sure how the rebar in there was designed, it could get to the point where the outer portion of these could start falling off and could potentially strike a child or somebody on the staff. This was a little, I'm not an engineer, but I think it might be worth looking at. It appears this is where two prefab walls are supposedly bolted together. This is a corner of the gym. It's been separating. It's been tried to be gooped up, tried to plug up. Apparently, I don't know if it's been leaking. I didn't find any damage on the floor in the gym, but here again, this is an area where moisture is going to get into the building and start causing expansion issues. It has been tried to be patched here. You can see the caulking here, but the building continues. I don't know if it's decent heat or cold or whatever. The caulking is not working too well, and it appears like it's continuing to slowly separate. This is a view of that same area, but from inside the gym. And I'm not sure if this is from just shadowing or if that's actually a slightly water infiltration. And I couldn't tell you for sure if that little spot is light coming in or not. It may have just been my flash. I don't recall. But anyway, that is all the way down the wall here on the inside of the gym. This is a little bit lower area. So this is where my background as far as safety, working with electrical stuff and water. I'm a little concerned with the staff because up there, this is when it's been nice and dry. It was 95 degrees when I was there, and that's my footprint. So you still have this slimy mess here around the HVAC units up there because it does not drain well. It's actually lower than the drains. So they go around on both sides. So the staff has to walk around in this to change the filters in these units for the gym. In order to get the filters up there, they have to take them up on the roof. Then they have to go over and then tie a rope and yard them up because there's no real easy access to get up to these units. And this is part of the problem in the summer months that creates an issue. This is, I'm not sure anybody's familiar, or I know Tim probably is, condensate drain lines on an HVAC unit. Unfortunately, all it does is end right here, which is, the whole thing was probably buried in ice through the winter months. You can see the crack here. It probably filled up with ice water, expanded, contracted, cracked it. But in the summer months or spring months or early fall when we had using HVAC, the air in the school, which all these kids are going to generate a lot of moisture, gets taken out. And this is where that moisture is collected on the evaporator coil and then drains out. Problem is, it just drains onto that area around the HVAC units and goes nowhere and just puddles up. The correct way should be that this should be taken out on a line somewhere where it doesn't create a safety hazard. Somewhere where it can get to a drain or whatever, not just dump it on the floor. And obviously, it's been this way for 40 years. And then there's another little small issue there, is this drain is from the next level up, which is the top of the gym. This drain drains right down in that same area where the condensate is and where the port area is. So more again, when there's rain or snow melt, all this water from the top of the gym, from this particular drain, comes down and then sits there. And these guys have to go up there in the winter months, change filters in ice. And to me, it's a safety issue for the staff. And this is my little pet peeve, is these are those units. From about here down to the roof is about roughly 6 to 8 feet, I forget exactly how much. And if they have to walk around these units here, this little area here is about this high. If they stumble in ice or whatever, it's an 8-foot fall for them. I'm not sure what it would cost, but it'd be real nice to see a railing put around, made out of pipe or whatever, so that it keeps anybody, if they slip up there, keeps them from falling. The other problem that I noticed with that, close to that same area, is there's a covered walkway that goes from the main building over to the gym. And it has drains drain out on the sides. The problem is the way it is sloped there, the water drains down, drains back onto the walkway. The students use the walkway to get back and forth. So the staff has to go out there with snow melt, throw snow melt all over it to keep the ice down. And then there's a parking area there too, and that is also sloped, so it's coming towards the walkway. It's not going away from the building, it's coming towards the building. So you get the water drainage from the roof, you get the water drainage from the parking lot, all comes out and winds up coming down to where the students and the staff have to walk to get between the buildings. So now we throw that ice melt stuff on there. This is the area here, these drains right here, here, and this one right here in the corner. All these drain down, and that's the, this is the walkway right along through here that they come out. Oops. So all this de-icing that they throw out there, and I'm sure you're all aware of your driveways if you've been here on a long time, your cement driveways start to deteriorate and fall apart, and call it spalling. Most of that is caused by de-icing. It's not good for the calcium in the cement. So all these walkways are beginning to deteriorate and fall apart, and they're just going to get worse. Because the next winter, when it gets snowy or cold or icy, they're going to have to go up, put down more snow melt, so the kids don't fall on ice or the staff. Lunchroom issues, this was not a big deal. There we go. But here again, this is on slab. This is just one section. This crack runs probably almost all the way across the lunchroom, which means the concrete underneath is cracked, which is not a real killer, but the picture I showed you earlier of the edge of the building where they'd taken up the carpeting, and you saw the crack on the mortar between the first layer of brick and the foundation. My guesstimate, this is a guesstimate on me, is we're having the same problem here, and this is the outside wall of the lunchroom. And along the wall on the outside, they have all these ant problems, he said. Ants are digging through, they're moving all the sand out of their way, and they're coming into the lunchroom along that wall. So they have to go in there and clean this up constantly. So I don't know, the slab was poured, slabs will settle, develop cracks, 40 years. We don't know what's going on there. If we pulled this piece of skirting here off, it might be a little more revealing to what's actually going on under there, but I'm not going to pull it off. So I found this in several areas along that one wall. This is the classrooms with the wonderful carpet. Now, I have no idea how old this carpet is. My guess is it might even be the original, I don't know. But in order to keep people from tripping and falling, we have massive amounts of duct tape. A lot of the carpets, and I'm not sure it'll show on some of these pictures or not, even with the duct tape, you'll find all kinds of little rolls. So it's just another place for a desk or a chair to get caught on to create another tear in it. Here again, they're trying to hold the carpet down where it gets torn, spots show up, so it's duct tape time. This is in the band room. This is in the gym, going from a locker room, I forget exactly where. And once again, you see the different type of flooring with your carpet. There's no threshold there except duct tape threshold. This is the storage room for the band. I guess that was the band room, that's right. And you can see all these little ripples here. That's the carpet rippling. Well, it's that way in a lot of the classrooms, just kind of these ripples. And of course, like I say, they get caught, they get torn, duct tape time. Another one of the big classrooms. Since all the desks were predominantly pulled out of the place when I got there, the rooms were pretty well open. Student bathrooms, it's all original, 40 years. The sinks are worn out. They're still serviceable. They don't look good. The porcelain's literally been worn through on them, both in the girls and the boys. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do except going back to repainting when the boys like to go in there into their bathrooms and make a little comments on the walls. Not much we can do about it. This was one, I found several bathrooms that had this where and I don't know what this, I can only attribute this possibly to settling, is this crack that runs along the base because it is on a slab. This is just one of many bathrooms that has the same issue with the tiling. Not a big deal. Aesthetically, it looks pretty bad, but that means the building is probably moving a little bit. Yeah, classroom overhead projectors. I think we saw this on some of the grade schools. There is a piece of wire mold going up the wall here, and they use that to tie all of the coax cables and stuff to. Ideally, what we should do is have put in wire mold again and put those wiring inside the wire mold, get it above the ceiling like this one's going above the ceiling, and then run it above the suspended ceiling down to where the post is for your projector, and then bring the wiring down. It's functional this way. It's not really a good, correct way to do it. I guess we have to do at the time, we did what we had to do at the time, but I don't think that would be a major thing to put all that wiring up inside of a conduit, put it into a box, and then feed the box down to the projectors. Storage. We had a problem with storage apparently at this school. I didn't take a lot of pictures. I guess I probably should have some of the rooms in the areas that they had, which were, the one that I have is pretty small. You see, you don't get a lot of stuff in there. They have, this is a box that has a few filters left in it, air filters for the school. There's little rooms like this here, there, and everywhere. And then there's the one room that has 2 stories on it with a wired cage in it and a stairway going up with a very small gate going into it. So it's very difficult. It's a rather narrow stair. It's only maybe 3 feet wide. It's going to be hard to get a lot of stuff up and down through there. The junior high school, from what they tell me, does most of the cooking for the elementary schools. So there is a really good sized storage area for the food. So they have, looks like sufficient area for the food. I counted at least 6 walk-ins in this kitchen. I mean, this thing looks like something from the military. But here's the other storage. And by the way, does anybody possibly know, maybe Ken knows, what this is?
It looks like a door.
It's a doorway.
It's a courtyard.
It's the only access, other than the classrooms, to the useless courtyard. So, in the meantime, nobody can use it. It's the only access, I guess that one got in the wrong spot. Come on, advance. What am I doing wrong?
You wanted to emphasize that point.
Yes. Did it freeze up or? If I ever do this again, I guess I'll bring my own computer. There we go. Okay, so that's what was supposed to be there. That is the only access to the courtyard other than through the classrooms. And my thinking is you convert that space, you've got all that room there, you've got a double door access from the hallway. Obviously, to me, it's an area that's useless. It's very poor usage of space. That could easily be, have a roof put over it. You could easily make that into a 2-level storage area. It's in the center of the school. Just an idea, I'm not an architect. But it doesn't seem to be of much use to anybody during the school year because you've got class in session. You can't enter it from the hallway because it's blocked up by the students, so what good is it? Wasted space. Then there's my other little pet peeve is air filtering. You've got a whole, I forget how many kids are in this school.
860.
860? Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't get any real good pictures, so I didn't put them in of inside the air housings, but I'm told by the custodial staff that they replaced the air filters in the fall time when we go from daylight savings time to standard time, and they replace them in the springtime when you go from standard time to daylight savings time. That's not a good plan in my mind. This filter was put in when daylight savings time came in. How long ago was that?
I'm gonna have to speak up here because that's not true.
Okay. I'm only telling you what I was told.
They're replaced in August, December, and March.
That's still too long.
Well, 180 days of school divided by 3.
This filter here, this filter material, and there's 50 filters in this one air box, should be white. When it gets even partially here, they should. What happens with these kind of a pleated filter is as they start plugging up, it starts choking off airflow. Normally, when I was doing HVAC work, everything was a maximum of 60 days, especially when you've got a building full of kids that have God knows what kind of bugs, you know, and these are good filters for trying to filter some of that, but when they plug up, they start restricting airflow. Some of the other concerns that I looked at, and I have no idea if Tim probably would be better at this, he probably knows how the building was built. If this is in fact a slab type construction on the flooring, the heating ducts come through the floor. So are the ducts embedded in concrete? Are they sheet metal ducts? Sheet metal and concrete don't like each other very well after a long period of time. You start getting a chemical reaction. I talked to one teacher who happened to be there in her classroom, and she was telling me that the servers for the wireless stuff is very limited, and they have trouble getting in certain areas of the building. And she was requesting that I bring it up. I said, okay, need to increase the server size for the school, because apparently not everybody can be on the server and whatever they're doing in their computer classes. I didn't get the picture. I guess I should have put it on there. He did a little demo. There's this little machine called a donkey that they use to pull the bleachers in and out with, and you have to ride on this thing. And it's only got a certain length of cord, and the cord's strung out on the floor, and part of it, to keep it from tearing out of the controls, is taped up with more ducting tape. To try to keep it so it doesn't tear out, and they have to hop on the thing to get to keep the seats coming out kind of in a straight line. And then they can go so far, then they gotta move the cords, and move it to another receptacle, and bring out another one, then they go to another, and it's kind of a laborious thing. And I don't know, again, it's 40-year-old equipment, so maybe we just have to live with it that way. A safety concern I had is coming off the roof. We open the door, it's dark. There's no light switch at the top of the stairway. So if the staff is coming in and a different door coming back into the building from the roof, the door shuts behind them, it's black. Think of just closing your eyes and then trying to find out where a handrail or something is, or get back to the door to open the door so you get, and send somebody down below to turn on a light switch. To me, that's probably a deficiency from back when the building was built. There really should be switches on anywhere you come into off the roof for the staff. There really needs to be a light switch there so they can turn on the lights for the hallway or the stairway that goes down. So I believe that's it for me.
Ron, I gotta ask you a question.
Go ahead.
I'm dying to ask you.
Go right ahead.
So this building is 40 years old.
Coming up on 40 years old.
Yeah, 78.
Right.
And I've been in a lot of schools in my career. What's your estimate for how old that building appears with wear and tear?
Wear and tear?
50 or 60 years old, or, I mean, that's my
possibly.
point, yeah.
See, it's been a while since I've been back to my high school. My high school just celebrated our 100th year. Same building,
What high school is that?
West Seattle High School.
Okay.
Now,
Well, I
granted,
was,
it's been upgraded, it's been updated, we've added on to it over the years, but it's, the original 3-story building is still there, still functional, still using, still turning out students every year.
my first year as a principal, the building was built in 1901.
My question here, or my thought there, talking to the staff, was in 1979, I believe, 79 or 80, I'm not sure, you might know this, when the Washington Energy Code went into effect. And the story that I was told was that there was a big push to get this school through the process and built before that came into being. I don't know if it's true. I mean, I wasn't there, I wasn't here in 1978, I can't tell you. But the story I've heard is that it was trying to be rushed through, otherwise they'd have to do a lot of modifications for the new Washington Energy Code, which I believe would mean thermopane windows, better insulation in the walls, whatever.
Thank you, Pat. Any other questions?
I have one for Tim, because I've heard this 1,000 times. Heat and air conditioning is controlled by a computer where?
In our office, the entire district's controlled through DDC, digitally, direct digital control.
Yeah.
We turn them on and off.
In your office? Because we were always told Tri-Cities or something.
Not that I'm aware.
Well, there have been systems that only somebody in the Spokane office of the service provider can actually modify, but in most cases, the last 10 years or so, those have been done back here in the district buildings.
Yeah. Our vendor that helps support that program is in Spokane, but we do the inputting in our office.
So we call up and say it's 85 degrees, you can look on the computer and see that and make an
Yeah,
adjustment.
all the custodians can monitor from their computer rooms that are too cold, too hot, and then they can report to us or they can go check it out.
There's sensors in all the ducts that are sensors put in there, they're called duct sensors, and they report back to them so that they can monitor whatever duct is what the temperature in it is. We used to do that in the city to keep people from coming to the wall and turning thermostats. I used to put dummy thermostats up, they worked.
The other challenge just with heating and ventilation system is you always design for
It's hard to
an
balance.
average day. So in most cases, we design for our climate. So we're going to design to be down to maybe 15 degrees cold or 20 degrees cold outside. and we're gonna design for maybe 90 degrees inside. And when you get your outside temperature beyond that, either too cold or too hot, your system isn't strong enough to keep the building warm or cold, whatever you've demanded. So that's one of the reasons that we, even as much as we can control systems, and we can say, or a teacher can go to the wall and say, I want it colder in here. In some of your older buildings, there's simply not that heating or cooling capacity to your systems, and the best we can do is full operational system.
To put a system in that would be pretty much satisfy most people, it would be very, very expensive. Because then you have zone heating here, there, and everywhere, and it would be just a nightmare for them.
I know, but I can attest to being in a classroom and trying to teach when it's 85 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't happen. I mean, or, so it's so critical, and ultimately that's what this is about. So I appreciate the expense of it, but ultimately it comes down to our kids learning in the environment.
Well, this building, like I said, the building is, overall, I think it's still sound. It's just that it's showing a lot of wear and tear, and I don't know a solution for it. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna insulate a brick building without putting another wall in around it or at the inside or something.
All right, Bill, you ready?
That's where I'm gonna be, I guess.
So once again, Bill Horton is a local planning consultant, essentially. He's done a lot of the projects around that we know about. He's probably not going to talk about any of them. He did mention that he was responsible for the fire station next door. So there's one. And again, from a questions perspective, Bill's open. He said if he doesn't know, he's not going to answer it. But he'll be ready to help. So.
You guys want some duct tape?
Yeah, works good.
Jeez. Peanut gallery right there.
Keeps the carpets together, right?
Yeah. Got a pointer? Top one.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Harden. I have a land use planning business in Yakima, and I've been doing it since about 1984. I worked for Yakima County from 1984 to 1994. Left the county to open this business, and I've pretty much been busy ever since. I've lived in Yakima since 1968. I was in the second grade when we came here. So some of you are younger, some of you are my same age, some of you are older, it appears. But I remember being at across from the old White Hollow School where Ray's Thriftway is now, a big sign that said "Future Home of Ray's Thriftway." That'll give you some idea. I was probably 13, 14 years old when you could go walking down the road with a shotgun because we were bird hunting down there. So had a regular route that we did. So like most of you, I've seen a lot of changes in the area as well. Just give you some idea. So Ryan's kind of asked me to come here and talk to you a little bit about zoning and growth, obviously particularly in your district I think you're most concerned about. A little bit of just general land use history in Yakima County. Yakima County's only had zoning since 1974. The city of Yakima has had it prior to that, but actually in the county since 74. So it's really, it's relatively new to the area. In 1990, that's pretty much when things changed. The state passed what's known as the Growth Management Act. And that's really, I think, where people started seeing an impact in land use. And in a nutshell, the goal of the Growth Management Act was to take areas that we would, it was basically to preserve areas for residential development, rural areas, and then what they call resource lands. Resource lands include all your agricultural lands, places where they mine gravel is resource, and then the forest lands where they would take timber. Those are pretty much the three basic resource lands. And so what happened during that period of time, from about 1990 to 1994, all the cities in Yakima County got together and established what they call an urban area boundary. And urban area boundaries are boundaries that are a little bit bigger than city limit lines. And those boundaries are where all urban growth is to be directed. And they try to put it out on a 20-year horizon. Some of the urban growth boundaries that we have, you could probably build in them for 40 years to come yet, maybe 50 years, but there's always limitations to what those are. So what's happened in the West Valley area, what fucking, the outside urban area, this is Wiley City, or yeah, I think it's Wiley City out there. Yeah, Wiley City is right out here. And this line right here is the urban area line, where they're trying to capture all the growth. This is Terrace Heights. This is just out probably before you kind of get to the dump, the top of the hill before you drop down, if that makes sense to everybody. Comes down, Union Gap has its own urban area, and then this is the airport right here. Comes around the airport, and then the Tannum Creek is one of these creeks right here. I'm not sure which one, but it kind of follows that and back over. And then inside that, this heavy black line is the city limit line. And the intent is that the city will ultimately grow out to that urban growth boundary. And the intent is, this is where all the water is, Nob Hill Water, City of Yakima. You have the regional treatment plant. You have the majority of your streets, your fire, police. And the idea was to capture all that type of growth inside a particular area. Well, the West Valley School District, I'm a little bit familiar with it. I know it runs down into the Atanum area, kind of works its way up, kind of around 48th Avenue to some extent, all the way back up into some areas of Scenic Drive. So you're kind of in here in the urban area. And outside that area, we have the rural areas of your district and the resource lands. As far as development goes there, extremely limited. And the county passed a new zoning code 2 years ago, which even limited it even further. So there's no water and sewer. Whoops, there's no water and sewer. Hang on. Let's be hit the wrong button there. You got it? Thank you, Ryan. There we go. So there's no water and sewer outside this area. In fact, unless it's an absolute emergency, it's against the law for cities to extend their water service outside urban growth areas. And I believe all of Nob Hill Water is inside this urban growth area. I know water goes out to Wiley City, and I think this boundary, this large boundary out here, was to capture a lot of Nob Hill Water service area. Every water district has an area where they're allowed to serve water, and nobody else can come into that district and serve water. Same with sewer. And so there's a regional sewer facility over here that takes care of all of Yakima, all of the urban area, and Union Gap. So that is kind of the general basis of this map and what we're looking at. So just jumping ahead a little bit to zoning, there's kind of two parts to zoning. There's what's called the comprehensive plan, And what the comprehensive plan is, they take everything inside this area and they try to figure out, okay, where do we want people to live? Well, we want to live in residential areas. So they take these big swaths of area like this and they say, okay, this is all gonna be residential in here. And then once they've designated that area, then they make a determination as to what kind of residential development. You want low density, which is single family residential, which is just kind of a conventional neighborhood? Or do you want moderate density, which is usually a mixture of maybe houses and duplexes, or what we call common wall? And then you have high density, which is multifamily, which generally is where you would find your apartments, okay? And West Valley, being the area out here where there was not a lot of growth back in 1990, had the luxury of having sewer lines, big sewer mains that kind of came out of the city limits and out into the county. And what would happen is the developers would hook onto those sewer lines, and that is what has spurred the growth of development here. Those sewer lines were always planned to serve this area since they were extended. And they were extended before I was a planner, before 1984, so I don't know much about it other than there's major interceptors that run east and west through this area. And what has happened lately, it may seem like there's a lot of growth going on out here at the moment, but a lot of the lots where you're seeing development were created pre-recession, and these developers, most of them were able to hang on to their property through that entire period of time, and so now they're building on those lots. I think Crown Crest at the corner of 72nd and Coolidge, it sat there for years with just kind of weeds growing in it, roads in there, very slow development. And you guys are aware there's a couple of those others around here, but now they're building out. And to be straight up with you, my professional opinion is there's a shortage of lots, particularly in the West Valley area. I talked to the planners about 10 days ago in Yakima County, who have most of the jurisdiction out here, and I said, do you guys have any long plats? And a long plat is a development where you're creating 5 or more lots, usually with water, sewer, curb, gutter, sidewalk, street light, and they said they had none. So we're kind of just filling out the inventory that we had. And my response to that is, a lot of these sewer lines have dead-ended. And so I think once this little spurt is over, I think you're probably going to see growth drop a little bit, okay? You've got sewer lines that are coming up the back here in the gully. That's probably one that will continue for a while. Once you get over to this side of the hill, you're probably looking at the next logical one to be extended would be, there's one just south of the West Valley Park. Okay, there's a little development in there just south of the park, kind of on the uphill side that probably went in 15 years ago. There's a line that dead ends there. There's a line that dead ends down at White Hollow Creek behind Highland Fruit. The next one over dead ends at 80th and Knott Hill. And what's happened is you have topography that's gotten in the way, hills. You've got floodplains and creeks that have gotten in the way. When you get to the 80th and Knott Hill, that property, there's no easements, there's no right-of-ways. So until somebody right there wants to do a development, and it's lots of small lots that are there, so there's really not much potential to be extending, 20-inch sewer mains through there. So Cottonwood Grove, if you guys are familiar with that one, which I think you probably are, that sewer actually comes from Midvale. So there's a line that runs from Midvale to the west, and what they've been doing is extending it as far south as they can, because the sewer line at 80th hasn't caught up yet, because it can't get past there. And so they've just about built that entire area out for sewer, because it can't gravity flow back into that drainage basin. And then you get out to 96th to Tieton, out by Cottonwood Elementary. Everything pretty much on the back side, being the south side of the hill. So if you're taking Tieton to the west, you look to your right, the hill goes up before you get to 96. Most of that wastewater comes down to a pump station that's pretty much at capacity at 96th and Tieton. It's pumped all the way back up to Chestnut till it finally hits a pipe that gravity flows back to the regional treatment plant. And there's a couple other smaller lines in there until you get up to Summit View. And I think it's about 90th. There's a break in the topography there. And once you get past that point, there's one manhole, and then you start dropping down towards 96th. And so there's the potential for development with gravity flow is being very limited, mainly by these factors right now. And that's what I see. I have been involved in most of the projects that you've probably seen out here, all the Cottonwood Partners projects. I've been involved with those. You know, I don't keep track of them all because they just keep rolling in here, but the fire district and a couple fire stations I've done over the years. It just keeps going and going, and it's, you know, it's getting busy again, but I'm not seeing the kind of development in West Valley that I've seen in the past. So, you know, it comes and it goes, and until I think some of these sewer lines get extended, we're probably gonna, once this little build out's done, probably this year, maybe next year, we're gonna be done. New development that I'm aware of, 64th and Occidental, it would be the southeast corner. It's called Anderson Park, probably 30, 40 lots in there. There may be more, I didn't work on that project. There's also a apartment concept that goes along with that, even a little bit further to the south. There's a couple projects I can't talk about. They're in your district. The applications have been submitted, but they haven't been deemed complete yet. And once they are, it'll be public record. They can talk about. I did some work for Westwood West Golf Course. Probably see some development there. Nobody can seem to come up with the money to buy the golf course, but that golf course was rezoned to, there's quite a bit of commercial in it. There's some multifamily and some moderate density residential in that one. So you'd be seeing duplex and apartments in there. About 15 acres for apartments, probably 8 or 10 acres for duplexes, and then maybe another 5 to 7 acres for commercial. So it looks like a golf course, but it's zoned to be developed. It used to all be zoned R1 single family, and the developers went through the process to change that about 3 years ago, I suspect. So the other thing about development, you know, you hear these things, oh, there's going to be 500 apartments here and 300 here and 20 here, or 100 unit single family residential house. I think if you pay attention, it takes a long time for that stuff to actually come to fruition. I worked on the apartments out in Terrace Heights that the Bortons had built, a little over 400 units there. It took about 4.5 to 5 years to complete that project. So from your standpoint, when you start seeing these projects ramping up, there's a little bit of lead time. I'm not saying a lot, but there is some for some reaction from a board like yours to say, hey, you know, maybe we need to contact these guys because there's going to be 400 units here. What kind of clientele do we expect them to have? Because some apartments have tons of kids in them, and some of them you've got young professionals, you know, they're either married, they're shacked up, or they've got kids that aren't even of school age yet, and by the time they do, a lot of them are out. And the apartments, they rotate quite a bit, and I think that's the reason. But there are some where a lot of kids come from. I'm suspecting the one down there on 72nd, just south of Meadowbrook, probably has a lot of kids in it, you know, just by just my observations of being around there. So that's kind of what we look at. We've got the zoning district up here, kind of this off-white color. I'm trying not to block you guys there. This is called suburban residential. That's definitely in your district. We're up along Scenic Drive in here. This is the Cowiche Canyon right up in here. So it's into the canyon, I think, and on top. But that's generally where you kind of find a lot of orchards and some rural residential living. This lighter yellow here, this is your R1, your low density. The density that they expect in this zone and this zone is 1 to 7 dwelling units per net residential acre. And when a person does a development, they usually get 3.5 to 4 houses to the acre. By the time you take out things such as streets, they take up quite a bit of property. Then we've got some R2 property. Are we looking at some R2 here?
And so just, you know, back of your second page, you've got kind of that same concept, not quite the clarity in colors.
And I think this right here is all this orchard that's over the edge of the hill here from the school. And so you could see a little higher density happening in this area here, and then you have your R3, which you've got a little bit out here. This is apple tree for the most part. This is a piece that's adjacent to apple tree that I worked on that zoned R3, but there's a specific condition on that one that it be used for senior housing. Not that it's always going to stay that way, it's possible that could change, and I've had some inquiries about that. That was purchased by Living Care. They're at 40th and Summit View, and they were trying to look ahead and figure out where they could best serve what they felt would be the residents of West Yakima, so they were looking at that area. There is an approved project there for seniors, but I think their board's taking a different direction, and they may want to do something different there. So that's how the zoning kind of works. You know, it's kind of follow the utilities. If you'll recall, when Apple Tree came in, they ran a sewer line from basically their facility down 86th, down Tannum, back up 64th, wherever 64th is, to Washington at their own expense. And that's why you started seeing development along 64th and at Tannum, some, you know, what I call conventional subdivisions where you see single family housing. So I think you'll see a little bit more development there. I think you might start seeing it over the backside of your hill here. You know, problem is ag's good right now, and people don't want to sell. I'm the planner for the city of Moxie with a contract. We've got people planting hops inside the city limits now. It's so good. And one guy who did sell a year ago, who's still waiting for his project to be approved, you know, he said, yeah, I'll sell to you, but I want $50,000 an acre. Well, that's pretty respectable, you know, they're selling about 20 acres, so there's that competing ag element that I think most other cities and towns don't have that we have here. When ag's good, get out of the way, we're going to plant every available spot we can plant, and when it's not good, we'll sell it to you for $35,000 an acre, $40,000 an acre, and that's what people were pretty much paying pre-recession. I won't talk anymore, but I will answer any questions that you guys might have. I just kind of want to give you a quick background. I'm volunteering my time tonight too.
So from a general perspective, with just kind of your perception of available lots, when does the supply get used?
Well, it is all based on demand, obviously, and there's a high demand right now in the valley. You know, Moxie's pretty much sucked up what I would consider probably the low income. If you've ever been to any of the Ajo developments, which are east of town, that's a development that's doubled the size of the town. I have been involved with that. But we are not seeing any new developments on the horizon for single family. And if we do, they're small. They're maybe 10 lots. To me, they're small. 10 lots, 15, 20. But you're not seeing like 30 of those developments. You're seeing maybe 1, 2, 3 a year. You know, I know Rich Hockern's got one going up on Summit View and 80th, 85th, somewhere in there.
It's White Hollow, or it's along, yeah.
So
East got that one too, yeah.
Yeah, there's a little one going, yeah, but it's not
That's
so
the little one,
big.
there's a big one along White Hollow,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, but it's not real big. It may seem big, but in the picture of development, it's pretty small. But that's kind of the only one going. Some of these lots are done, and it all depends on the market, when things are when they're gonna get developed. And right now, you know, the market's strong for housing, but the lots aren't there. And I've seen a lot of people forced out into the areas where the county and the state, through growth management, say they don't want them. I'm seeing people starting to get out into the rural areas or out into the agricultural areas. The intent was not to have people living there, so guys could make as much noise as they want, pretty much spray what's necessary to keep their crops, healthy and not bother people. But that's kind of it. Same with if you got to open a rock quarry to mine gravel, you want to be able to operate 24/7. You want to be crushing, you want to be mixing, you want to be hauling. So those areas that's what growth management's intent was in those resource areas. But people, out of necessity now, are kind of abandoning what everybody wants. And little by little, they're getting out a little further. Yes?
I don't know if you can comment on this or not, but what do you hear about a electrical substation too, going out towards the west?
I haven't heard about that. But it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think there's been much done to the electrical grid out this way since there's been a lot of development. All I know is it's hard to get a hold of PP&L when you need to talk to
All
them.
kinds of rumors. I just wondered if any of them were true.
I personally, I haven't heard.
Well, I know an engineer there that told me last year that it's kind of being thought about. They don't have a particular piece of property, but they're anticipating at some point they're going to have to put a substation, another substation out here in West Valley, because eventually we will reach capacity on the lines.
Yeah.
And that necessitates another substation.
Yeah, and I can understand that because, like I said, I haven't seen a lot of expansion to the electrical grid in all the years that I've been working here. I've seen a lot more cell towers go in than I have electrical substations.
Well, the cost of putting a substation in, they're going to have to see a substantial amount of growth
Yeah.
Mhm.
and need for it before they'll expend the money, especially.
And seeing what that urban area boundary does is there's no need to be putting substations out here because the growth isn't going to occur out here. They'll be looking somewhere in here to serve that particular need. But, right now, sewer lines, sewer mains are they're dead-ended. And the cost to move them through creeks and floodplains or over topography, huge. It's more than the developers would be able to incur on their own. Yes?
How often do the city lines and the urban lines expand?
Okay. The urban growth boundaries are kind of set jointly by the city and the county, but the county has the final say on it. So the city may want it at a certain location, but the county says, no, we're not going to give you that location. We're going to move you back, or you're going to stay where you are. City limits, on the other hand, which we're looking at here, any property that is inside an urban growth area can be annexed to the city as long as they've got 60% of the assessed value of the property. There's 3 different ways you can annex. One is 60% of the assessed value. I think 60% of the people that live in the area to be annexed. I can't remember the third one. So that the cities can grow just by somebody coming in and it's called a petition. You petition to annex. Say these people wanted to come in here, you go in here and get 60% of the assessed value or 60% of the people, and then that city limit line moves out to here and would fill in this little area right here. So the city limit line moves from here over to here. But that's pretty much at the will of the people. Out here, there's kind of a caveat. There's a lot of people that were out in the county that are connected to the city sewer, and they signed an agreement, or the owner did when the house was built, that said if the city wants to annex you, you have to go in. It's called the outside utility agreement. And there's some people that get forced in against their will because either the developer or the first homeowner or somebody like that signed that agreement so they could hook to the city water, or pardon me, the city sewer. So there are cases when you can get sucked in other than voluntarily.
So if that urban boundary expanded, how would that affect our district? Because outside the urban boundary, is there rules about you can't divide up your 10-acre plot and things like that?
So outside the urban growth boundary, development is very difficult because you're on wells for the most part and you are on septic systems, which are kind of 2 of the least desirable things right now. based on what our county commissioners believe, okay? So, the development outside that is limited. Most of this is, around us is ag. There's a little bit that's called rural transitional, but you've got to have at least 5 acres, and you only get one house for every 2.5 acres you have. So you got to at least have 5 acres to do with like a 2-lot short plat, okay? Then we have a ton, when you get out further here, rural, you get, like you're driving out to Tampico and the kind of the sagebrush ground, you get, you can get maybe 1 parcel for every 5 acres that you have. So if you have 10 acres, you get 2. If you have 15 acres, you can get 3 lots. So it's kind of a thing like that. So what will happen is when these sewer lines kind of get unstuck and get into these areas where there's some large undeveloped property, that's where you're going to start seeing your growth. But Nob Hill water is kind of all over the place. I mean, you run into Nob Hill water in places you don't, you know, they've got a tower out there at Gormley, and I'm not sure what one of the crossroads is, but north of White Hollow up there. Huge water tower to service an area, and I believe that's outside the urban growth area. So, but the county's position right now is if you're outside, even if you're inside the urban growth area and you want to do development, you need to be connected to water and sewer. And there is no sewer connections outside that urban area. So as this fills in, that's when you would start seeing the expansion and the increase in density would rise. This is a huge urban area for a city of its size. There was a bunch of land grabs going on 15 years ago between the city and the county, and the city wanted to keep growing and growing and growing, and that's when their city limits got way out here. There was no way they could serve that with sewer in the 20-year horizon. And that's what urban growth areas are supposed to be planned up for, a 20-year horizon. The commissioners bowed at that point in time, that set of commissioners, let that urban growth area come out this far. And lately, the commissioners we have now, the cities have asked to expand their urban growth areas, and their answer is no. You all have plenty. And so we would expect growth to occur within that urban boundary right now, probably for the next 20 or 30 years without it expanding. I don't see it expanding.
One of our jobs is to figure out how serious it is to build schools. Are you saying that the growth out here is going to be slow?
I think it's going to slow down. I guess it's probably a better way. I'm not going to say it's going to be slow, but it's going to slow down. Right now, there's just some obstacles. Once one of those sewer lines breaks loose, then I think, you know, I call it follow the utilities. As long as you got water and sewer, they're just going to keep going until they run into the next obstacle that stops them. But at the same time, you can have, you know, laterals coming off of the main line. You kind of have the main line going one direction, laterals coming off. So those laterals will keep going until they hit something. I've asked the city in meetings, I'm a member of the home builders, and I've asked them, hey, show us where all these dead end lines are, because we can't find anywhere to hook up to the sewer. I said, you guys need to talk to the city council, you need to talk to engineering, see what's going to take to expand these things. I said, developers will help do that, but to expect them to do all of it, it's probably not going to happen, and that's why it's not. But yeah, I mean, most people use, there's some state numbers that come out on population. You know, the Office of Financial Management, OFM, I think is what it's called, and you guys may be familiar with that. That determines what your population is going to be, and most people, most cities and towns, counties, they do their planning based on that. It's usually a kind of a percentage of growth of population, and then they break you down into ages. And that's a good tool for determining what kind of growth to expect.
But we're not in a stage of needing to be super nervous about growth right now. We're not going to giantly grow in the next 5 years.
You're not going to what grow in the next 5 years?
Giantly, we're not going to have major growth in the next 5 years.
Not like, I don't believe you'll see it like you've seen it. I don't think you'll see it like you've seen it in the past. Yeah, you're going to see it, but I don't think you're going to. I can tell you right now, things are going pretty darn good in this in this valley as far as construction goes, but housing construction is going pretty good, but they've run out of lots. You might see some vacant lots out there in the neighborhood, they're already spoken for. When these guys sell lots, they'll come up to Ryan and say, Ryan, I've got 30 lot subdivision, you want some lots? And Ryan will say, yeah, they'll go, okay, here's what you do. I'm gonna sell you 4 lots. You take down one right now, you take down another one in 3 or 4 months, you take down another one in 3 or 4 months, you take down another one in 3 or 4 months. He knows he's got a year, maybe a year and a half worth of building, and they know they got their lots sold. And that's, any vacant lots you see in those conventional subdivisions, they're already spoken for. They're not for sale unless you want to build a house there. And you have to then go to Ryan and talk to Ryan about buying one of the lots in that development, because it's already gone.
He talked about apartments. I live close to the one on 48 that Borden's have, and that's gotta be not a lot of kids.
I have found that out, okay, for another project I'm working on, and it was kind of interesting. There was, I think there's 330 units there, does that sound right? Probably about, and the number of children is very small there, and actually the amount of traffic that it generates is 25% less than what the traffic engineer's manual says it should generate.
Now, the one, you're talking about another apartment complex. Is it by Borden's too? Is it being built by Borden?
Well, he was talking about 64th and Occidental.
No, that's Cottonwood Partners, that's 64th and Occidental, which is 38th, 64th, right in here. This is all zoned R3 multifamily right here. There's a piece of property right in here where there's going to be single-family residential, and then this is approved for apartments. There's some floodplain that comes through here that also affects development greatly, and so there's some kind of development here. And then you have duplexes and triplexes being built in this area right now as we speak. Worked on that development too. That was approved like 3 years ago, and now they're just getting under construction this year.
I was at White Hollow, principal at White Hollow when Cornerstone came in. And that was a major impact on us because of the number of kids. But that's not what Borden's property was.
I can tell you from experience in working with them, that is not their market. And I believe, here's what I can tell you, I know for a fact, because I also mentor some kids, and one of the kids I mentored has just moved into the development you're talking about. It was 2-bedroom, and it was $850. And I think it's like $800 for a single bedroom, $850 for a 2. No, it's gotta be more than that. It was $900 for a 2. And then it was $1,025. They have a few 3 bedrooms in there. So
You don't get a lot of families.
they don't see the families there. Yeah. And my mentee, he's moving in there with his girlfriend who, they didn't tell me to teach him about sex ed. They're having a baby. They just told me, hey, let's get him through high school, right? So I work on getting him through high school. In the meantime, she's come down and she is pregnant, and they have moved in there. And but they will. I know he won't be there till that child is old enough to go to school. I know what his motivation is.
May I ask a clarifying question, because I'm thinking the same thing as Dave. So 64th and Montana, are they just started building? So I guess where our
Well,
decision.
there's 2 projects down there.
Well, so I'm
There's actually
literally
3.
on Montana, not up to Occidental. So I guess that what you're kind of getting at, Dave, is the Cornerstone is very different than a Borden. So what I'm trying to clarify is who owns these? So is the 64th and Montana, is that a Borden project?
Okay, let's start
That
at
is
let's
a
start
very
at
bad one.
64th and Atana, where
Literally
we're
out.
T's.
Mhm,
Okay, I'm looking north, the northwest corner.
right, Correct.
The actual corner itself is zone commercial. And then all the way around that commercial piece, there's some property that's zoned either R2 or R3.
Okay.
And it's a series of duplexes and triplexes.
Okay.
Okay, there's probably, and I'm shooting from the hip, this was 3 years ago, maybe
Right.
longer, probably 40 to 45 units, okay? Then if you go north,
Uh-huh,
you come to another T where Occidental
yes.
goes to the left. Okay, on the right,
Mhm.
but back towards the Tandem, there's a big chunk of R3. My understanding is there's apartments that are there.
Okay,
The project has been approved. It's for sale by Cottonwood Partners. I don't know how many units it was approved for because I did not work on that.
okay,
Okay, then if you were to take Occidental straight east, so we're coming up here, instead of turning left on Occidental, we turn right. We're going this way, over here would be the apartments, and then over here is a single-family development that's probably gonna start breaking ground, I would expect, probably this year. Looks like they could probably get 20 to 30 units in there.
and then 64th and Knob Hill, like across, behind the Happel Bank,
Okay,
across.
here's what I can tell you, what I know about that.
Mhm.
438 units, all Borden.
Those are,
Yeah. That's a project that's not deemed complete that I worked on, that's in the city, I'm waiting for them to deem it complete, so that's where we're at.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, they called and asked me for some additional information, I provided it to them last week, I'm just waiting for them to say, yeah, it's done.
And those are.
But that's gonna be very similar to their Terrace Heights project and their project by this gentleman's home.
Which is really a well taken care of project. They really do a nice job.
And if you have a chance to go out and see the one that they've done in Terrace Heights,
By Riverside, is that the
yeah,
one?
there's a pond out there that they took full advantage of, and there's a plant with grass, there's a asphalt walkway around it, and they could, here's what I can tell you, they could actually put more units on these properties that they're developing, but they don't. They're actually spaced out pretty well.
Thank you.
64th and Occidental, is that a Tandem Elementary?
There's a, you would have to look literally on a map, there's a very strange loop. So I won't answer that, because I could say yes and I could say no, because it depends.
But
It's not clear.
If it's close to a Tandem,
Where
It
those,
should be, I'm
where
not.
those
gonna-
duplexers are going in, it's a TAN.
Yeah, the 64th and Occidental one, but the Occidental, I don't know.
That, I don't,
Yeah.
the one that I don't know that, I know that when we were going through the deal, the boundary line discussion, and I looked at this a few months ago, the duplexes, the 40, approximately 40 units of duplexes, that's a TAN,
Yes,
we have room in Tandem.
right?
right. But as you see, the majority of these others are in the locations of the places that do not
I
have.
believe that the one that's on, excuse me, pardon.
No, that's.
I believe, Dave, if my memory serves me correctly, the one that is on the east side of 64th and where the single family, the 20 single family lots, and then to the south, which would be the multifamily, which I believe was approved for 400 units in the Cottonwood Partners development, because that's all now
I
public
didn't work on
record.
that one, so I'm kind
Yeah.
of I know it's
But
done. I know
now it's
for
public
sale.
record, so it's
Yeah,
approved for,
right.
it's in phases up to 400 or 500 units. That those on the east side of 64th are actually Summit View at this time.
And getting back to, I believe her question was kind of about what do we expect? As a planner, I have a hard time imagining there's enough room for 800 apartments in West Valley. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you guys have a better feel for it. That's a lot, takes a lot of growth. And I think one project will get off the ground and the other one probably is gonna be really slow to go.
Well, they're probably looking to see how the one project gets off the ground and see what the demand is for it before they decide to pull the trigger.
There's a waiting list over there at, what's it called? Crown Castle? Castle Creek? It was a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, 44 people waiting to get in there. So there's a little bit of demand, yeah. But, you know, if the project over across or behind Apple gets going and we're, you know, they'll take a lot of that off of there. Yeah.
So one of the thoughts that I have is, we see all these potential developments for people. Where are the jobs going to be for these people? what kind of people are we talking about moving in here? I don't see big industrial complexes coming in or server farms or anything, so what kind of people? I mean, I'm retired, I moved here, I'm a retired person. I've got, my wife's cousin is moving down from Wenatchee, he's a retired person.
Okay. Here's what I can tell you. I used to ask myself that question all the time. Who's gonna live in all these houses, right?
Yeah.
And what I realized was, Bill, you're 58 years old. You're gonna be retiring, and there's gonna be somebody who's coming into this town that's gotta replace you. And believe it or not, Yakima is there's people that are retiring constantly.
But a lot of us are not from Yakima. We're
No.
coming in from the outside,
Look at the
so.
hospitals. You know, look at the hospitals. You know, I don't know when you built this new school, if you ended up hiring new people. Make the assumption we probably have a few more classrooms and hired some more teachers, maybe some more maintenance guys. These warehouses, the warehouses are the interesting one component because everything seems to be going mechanical, high tech, I guess, maybe is probably a better term for it. But when you go by these packing houses, I happen to live down at Lake Aspen, and when I go down and sit by Washington Fruit on River Road, they barely have enough parking, and I look and see 300 cars there. And I'm thinking, how in the world can this be going high tech when they have this many cars parked out there? And you know, minimum wage has gone up. People being paid $11 an hour, and that's gonna continue to go up. So it seems like people can afford more with that going up. I don't know if it's true, it's just kind of.
Well, somebody making $12, $15 an hour is not gonna be able to afford it through $350,000 to $450,000 house.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what's being built out
Yeah,
here.
yeah. But you've got doctors retiring, dentists retiring, lawyers are retiring. All these people, these new young professionals are coming in and filling that demand. Here's the deal. You're coming here, there's a lot of people that don't leave here. I'm glad they're here. I didn't mean it that way. But some people are. But you understand what I'm saying? So there's some people that are coming here, but the amount of people that retire, how many of you have your dentist or your doctor and they're retired, but they're still living here? You know, I know some of mine are retired, some retired and have died, but that's just, you know, that's what I think. I think there's a whole new core of professionals that are replacing people who have retired, and those people that retired didn't leave. That's part of it. I'm not saying that's 100% of it. So, and there's, you know, we in planning we call it the triangle. You know, all the money's up here, and it seems like the labor force is down here. There's a lot of people down here and very few people up here. There's hardly anybody in the middle. But right there, those middle people are the people that pretty much are affording the $250,000 to $350,000 homes. I can't believe the price of homes either. You know, I'm like you guys. The first one I ever bought was, you know, $42,500. You know, I bought a truck that's sitting out there 10 years ago, and I paid $38,000 for it. So, yeah, I mean, that blows me away too. So those are just my observations in being in this field doing what I do. I can't even say they're 100% correct, but that's one of the things that I thought I was correct on. I'll give you an example, but I've just been dead wrong on. When you hit these areas where the sewer lines have stopped, I thought if you give us commercial zoning or high-density residential zoning beyond that, they'll give somebody the incentive to do a big development, maybe a grocery store or, you know, a strip mall or something to where they could say, we can afford to put this in and extend that sewer line out there. It's not happening. If you zone it that way, somebody comes in and puts exactly what you don't expect to be there. And they don't need the sewer, they don't need the water. You think, oh, this huge, beautiful, nice piece of R3 property, we can get some apartments in there. And what do? They put a mini storage complex in there. And all they have to do is, they don't need sewer for that, but they need water for fire protection. The water lines are usually already there because it's in Nob Hills District. And so boom, right in the middle of development, you've got a mini storage complex. That's an example. I see that stuff happen all the time.
Well, you brought up a good point about agriculture too. We're seeing an awful lot like new lots being put in,
Yeah.
rather than houses.
Yeah. You know, and that Congdon's developing a little bit, but you guys know now, when I was a kid, Congdon's was never going to develop. Congdon's was always Congdon's, okay? For the most part, Congdon's is still Congdon's. When those hops went up, You know, you can see the investment in those. But the interesting thing about Congdon's is they are developing a little bit, but what I always observed was development went all the way around it. It's all in the north, it's all in the east, all in the west, and all in the south. They just kind of sat there. And so with all those utilities had to be extended all the way around there. And they've kind of been a big block, slowing down development in an orderly fashion, because they own so much property, they continue to keep it in ag. But I slowly, you know, I worked on, what's it called, Wellington Estates down there, which is south of Washington. You guys probably know where most of this stuff is. You know, probably a couple hundred houses back in there through, I don't know, 5, 6 phases. You know, but once that sewer line got kind of past the airport, boom, it took off. And then you have Thornton's add on to it. That's why you see development along Occidental and 64th and the Panama 64th, because there's a sewer line there. And there was always a water line for a long time from Mount going all the way out to Wiley City. So, it's hard, growth is hard to plan for. Everybody thinks they can do it. They all thought the growth management was going to take care of it. It still hasn't taken care of it. But the one thing you pretty much guarantee with growth management is that development is going to occur inside this line, and the political forces in Yakima County right now have no desire to expand those urban growth boundaries. So if I had to kind of wrap it up, that's how I do it.
Anybody else? Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Ryan. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Catch up with you later. And I'll take Spencer up there, I gotta get him.
Oh, yeah. I think you might have got that the first day of employment, 1984 from the
He's
county.
old, huh? Yeah.
It's like the station wagon from that time.
Thanks. You can help them out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Last bit we're going to talk about, just really quick, and then we'll get out, is this kind of graph. I just concepted this bit of yesterday and today. One of the items that the school board was presented this week was basically the changing landscape as it relates to funding for students from the state of Washington, and some of the changes that have been placed on us as a result of the recently passed state budget. So some of the interesting modifications, the school board basically has taken an appropriate kind of pause. They still have an obligation to get the school budget finalized and out before September the 1st in order to be ready for school. But there's a lot of uncertainty right now. A lot of the details in the state budget haven't been finished, maybe that's the best way to say that. And so it's part of the concept. But I wanted to lay this out so you can just start to understand. If you look at the year 2016, box 1, in 2016 the state levied a school rate of basically $2.25 per thousand. We had a voter-approved operations and maintenance levy of $2.74 per thousand, and then we have construction bonds related to the high school construction in this building, which was basically just over $1.70 per thousand. So as a typical, and I pulled these numbers from my home, I'm in the city of Yakima, our numbers from a community perspective, frankly, should all be the same on the rate per thousand. So in 2016, we paid a schools related cost of $6.69 per thousand. You can see that that rate changed in 2017. So our O&M levy, I'm just going to use that one, the district still requested the same amount of money, but because we had an increase in property values, because we had new home construction, because we had kind of new value added to the pool that is West Valley School District, that rate per thousand actually went down, in this case down to $2.68 for our operations and maintenance levy. The school's overall levy, and frankly I don't know why, but this also dropped 19 cents per thousand. And our construction bond effectively stayed the same, very slight change in kind of the, hundredths of a penny, tenths of a penny. But again, that change is because we had an increase in our valuation of the district. So some of the big things that have changed is, effective in 2018, our district, effective in 2019, 2019. See, this is why it still says draft. Effective in 2019, what the state legislature has decided is an O&M levy for a district, which is no longer going to be called an O&M levy, is going to be capped at $1.50. That's the most you can ask your voting population for. So that'll be a statutory limit, which means in kind of big balanced fashion, what their expectation is now, the state's gonna go out and increase that to $2.70 statewide, and somehow they're gonna backfund the school districts with at least what they were collecting under the previous levy structure. So again, part of the kind of the moving nature of this. So effective in 2019, sorry, again, my math is off by here. Effective in 2019, we'll be down to a rate of $5.90 that's going to show up on our property taxes for schools. And hypothetically, the school district will still receive the same amount of funding. So as presented by Dave Cook, who's our Yakima County assessor, his presentation was really that this is just kind of a statewide mass balancing, that because they're applying the valuation and sales tax collection equally across all the state of Washington, those higher developed areas, those areas with higher density industry and higher density manufacturing are essentially going to have a larger share statewide of the tax burden. So the communities of King County, Snohomish, et cetera, in western Washington are essentially going to pay a larger share. The comment is that in some cases, housing taxes for a home in King County are going to go up a couple $1,000s a year. So welcome to Yakima.
That's one reason why I left Snohomish County. My
And-
old
and-
house is over $8,000 a year now.
Well, and my father-in-law has a home outside of the Maple Valley area, and he talks about $1,500 a month in school kind of related taxes and King County taxes. So in any way, those are some of the areas that's going to change. So as a school district, we're obviously, again, kind of in that wait and see approach to understand what the district's funding is going to come back to. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think one of our recommendations from this facilities committee is going to go ahead and move forward with a recommendation to the board that we go forth with a levy replacement, which will be the $1.50 rate that's probably state limited. Could go down if the finances and the state allocation turns out to be better, but that's just something like your concept. So that'll, in all likelihood, be a conversation that we'll have for us as a district in February of 2018. Will be to request or ask the voters to support us, frankly, in 2019 at that $1.50 rate. So just wanted to kick that out there so you knew that was one of the items. Any questions I can try to answer or muddle through? What's the new phrase on an O&M levy?
It was something. Brian will have to update this. One of the things that Dave told us on Monday is that, so we have 2016 to 2017, 2017, so this present year where it says 644. And actually in the third where it says 590 estimate, that's not correct. It really will be $6.99 because we're still going to have the operations and maintenance levy in 2018. Okay, so it's not going to be a $1.50 statutory limit. It's going to be whatever, because our current levy runs through the end of 18. That's why we need to. That's why we'll need to run another well, that's why we'll need to do a levy in 18. And then that $2.70 for the state school levy is actually correct, and that's why next year for all school-related projects or all school-related taxes, it'll be around $7. So Ryan will have to get this corrected, but then going forward, he's right that the law that was recently passed is that schools like West Valley could only go out for $1.50 per thousand, as opposed to a true replacement of $2.68.
So we're gonna see a tax increase next year, and then the year after that, we'll see a tax reduction.
That's what Dave is anticipating, yes.
So this box right here is actually going to go to $6.99 because this 268 or so is gonna continue over one more year. So yeah, so that's why it still says draft. So it's gonna look, as a taxpayer, both, well, for here in Eastern Washington, it's probably gonna look pretty ugly for here as far as our taxes. But hypothetically, it all looks better from there. And again, part of what Dave Cook suggested was that essentially the state is going to tax us for a year in order to make up the funds in order then to pay out.
We're not gonna understand.
No,
I mean, there's gonna have to be major education for people to understand this,
well, that's,
that aren't educators to,
But- I think the bottom line to this, and my takeaway Monday night, is it's going to be exceptionally challenging, if not impossible, to run a bond and ask for construction schools in 2018. It's going to be next to impossible, because it's going to be very difficult to, it's not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult to educate people, especially when their taxes, when their property tax per thousand is going to go up by 65 cents per thousand, because that's a lot of money. And then, but, and we hope, but probably not, it's difficult for folks to compartmentalize that that's not all going to the West Valley School District, unless you're in the conversation on a daily basis. And then, so then we have, you know, as Ryan talks about here, what's the tax impact? But then what does that mean to, what does that mean on the revenue side to the West Valley School District? What are we gonna have to operate from? And so we're trying to figure all that out right now. But, you know, if we're going to go out and ask people, for money, this is a big factor in it, because again, it's nearly $7 is going to schools, and now we're gonna be asking for more, and that's gonna be a really tough sell. So it comes back to, you know what, it comes back to one of the very first things that this group is supposed to be doing, or will be doing, is rolling up our sleeves and figuring out how are we gonna move some boundary lines around, because likely we're gonna have to delay going out for a bond, any bond, for a little while, but you know, we'll have to, that's all what we're gonna have to think about.
One thing I heard him say was, it takes time to build these houses.
Absolutely.
It's not gonna happen overnight.
But even with the houses that it's gonna take time to come on board, we still have crowding issues that we have to deal with right now.
Exactly.
Whether there's not one more kid that comes into the district or not.
Yeah, even the few houses on 88th and 89th that he's talking about, sure, it's only a 12 or 14, but those few kids for our building specifically, because we are already full, those apartments on the 64th and Nob Hill for White Hollow, just like you pointed out, Dave, these are not being built in the area of Autanum or Mountain View that have room. I mean, Cottonwood, even though it was always built bigger, these buildings are full. Summit View to take on 64th and Occidental, there's no place to put those children. And even though it's not, they're all first graders or they're all fourth graders, it's one or two or three of each, but I appreciate that. I think that was the point. I don't want to hear him say, don't worry about it, the growth is not coming. The current growth that's here has caused such an overcrowding already, that I think that's important to realize, or overcapacity.
They don't assume all these people moving in are gonna have kids.
No, true.
You
But some
can't-
of us
you
are at
can't
such a
go on
point
that-
where.
You can't
a
go on
few-
that basis, and every time a developer comes in, 35 houses, gonna be 40 kids in there.
That's right.
Right, true. There's a ratio.
That's the challenge.
That's the challenge, but
That's the challenge,
Good
to
point.
try to figure out exactly what we're gonna need to do, what we're
Right,
gonna need
but
to
the
put forward.
exactly, and to go back to what I just said, right now, it doesn't matter if we had not one more house that comes in. We still have to deal with the issue of moving some boundary lines around,
Right.
regardless if one more house or one more apartment building is built. Bill gives us some very good information And that doesn't mean that we just get to go home and we don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. And I don't think anybody took it that way, but I certainly did.
So I was interested to learn, and I'm not going to find a document right now, but I actually went back. Frankly, first thing that's amazing is how few of our voters are active, how few of our tenants, how few people in West Valley actually register to vote. And I can go down the list and you'll have 60-unit apartment complex and you'll have a voter in 1, 3, 7, 12, 13, 14, 15. You simply won't have everybody who's on the voting rolls. So it's kind of an interesting concept. But I went back and I built the demographics, and the concept that we're a retired community, again, from a voter rolls perspective, only 30% are actually 65 or older. So there's a tremendous amount of people, and again, Michael Moore has done a lot of the demographic kind of evaluation for us. From a district perspective, it's simply been parents that don't vote. It's in some respects, you hope you don't have 19-year-olds that need to go for schools, but the 24 to 40 demographic isn't voting.
Is not voting?
Is not voting.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one other thing about the apartments, and just because there's apartments doesn't necessarily mean that there are kids coming. You know, I appreciate that comment. The only thing that worries me, however, about that is the apartments that he's talking about in Terrace Heights, the apartments that he's talking about at 48th and Nob Hill are not located in the West Valley School District. And like it or not, we are a destination school district for many families. So to say, even though you're building apartments and you look at these others that are outside of the West Valley School District and they may not have a lot of kids associated with them, I think we have to proceed with, I think that's council. I think we have to take that a little bit with some caution because the type of clients that I represent are not necessarily the people that are going to be moving into apartments, but that are higher income people, people that work in the medical field, etc. And it's all about living in the West Valley School District. And that's where they want to be. And they're going to find a place until they can in the West Valley School District so they can send their kids to go to school here. And I think apartment folks might also do that. And that's something that I appreciate what Bill's saying, but we are a destination school district when you look at those other ones. And people don't want to send their kids to East Valley, yes, more so than the Yakima School District. Just my 2 cents.
Like I say, show me where all the jobs are.
Exactly.
It's gonna-
Yeah,
For the high-end income people that's here.
yeah,
You go to Western Washington, they're all over.
absolutely.
But over here, I'm not seeing it.
Well,
My wife retired from Snohomish PUD. She's
Right.
never been able to find any kind of job around here that pays any more than about $11 an hour.
I'll tell you one of the
She's
things.
not gonna work.
I'll tell you one of the things that I find in my practice that I'm exceptionally surprised by more and more every day is that you don't have to be, you can do there's a lot of people that can do their job from anywhere. It's much more telecommuting and so forth, and your money goes a lot further in Yakima. And so that even though they may have their regular job that's based in Seattle, as long as they have computer and internet and cameras on their deal and stuff, they'll live in Yakima. And it's I find it very interesting too. I totally understand where and it's like, yeah, I live in Yakima, but really, my main office is over in Seattle or Portland or wherever it is. And I wanted to move over here because I didn't want to live over there, don't really need to live over there, and quite frankly, I can get 3 times the house over here than I can over there.
Would it help you possibly in that, because I hear your curiosity and I'm thinking about the numerous amount of children we've enrolled. And I mean, I could probably go through, and not just our school, but the other schools, and help provide that, not in a person, I'm not going to say Tim Critchlow works for the West Valley School District, but I mean, we could give a very good report on where these people are coming, that would be enough proof for you. We have a lot of them who are coming for the Northwest School in Terrace Heights, but like Michael has said, they are not living in Terrace Heights, they are living in the West Valley School District.
Oh, for the
But they're
medical,
going-
for the medical
schools,
school.
Thank you, medical school, and, I mean, I'm thinking about all the people who are moving in, and, you know, I know Cottonwood gets such an amount of people, they have jobs, there are jobs, they're working all over the place, and a lot of them are at home, but if that is a piece of information that may help you or other
Well,
constituents in the area you know,
It's pretty much,
we can
the
kind
more
of generalize.
documentation like that that we can gather, that gives more ammunition to put out there.
Exactly, right.
Because it sounds to me from what you're saying, we've got a shortage of registered voters that should be registered, or they're just too darn lazy. Somehow we gotta get more people.
I think it's more the latter.
That's American democracy.
It's really tough when it comes in the mail to check a box.
Absolutely.
One other thing that worries me about apartments, because we hear it through the grapevine, especially us as teachers, because we know where our little buggers live and don't live and say they live. There are people that rent the apartments and don't live there, because they have a big, beautiful house that they love in East Valley, but they want their kids in West Valley, and so they look for a cheap apartment to have an address in West Valley. And we know who they are. They rent houses, you know, if you can afford to do that, but you love your house in East Valley, but you feel strongly about having your kids in West Valley, those
Or you
apartments
sign-
are a great option.
Or you sign a form that just says I'm living with another person.
Right.
There's a lot of those people too.
Yeah.
My question was, when you have these out-of-district people, is there a revenue transfer from, say, the Yakima School District? If I am, which I'm not, but actually for 1 year, I did live in Yakima, and my 2 girls went to West Valley.
Yeah,
And I know I had to go down to the Yakima School District to fill out some paperwork. Was there a revenue transfer?
Yeah, so Janet, every month, in the school board packet, there's an enrollment report that gets generated by our district, and we send it in, and then we're paid based upon that enrollment report. And so it doesn't matter where these kids live, it matters that they are enrolled in the West Valley School District, and we get, it's approximately $6,000 per student.
From the state?
Well, from all sources, it's about $6,000 per student. And it's per full-time equivalent student, and it is based upon the enrollment, not necessarily where they live.
So it's to West Valley's benefit to get the out-of-district kids, it's just unpredictable.
Well, yes and no, that's a challenging question. From a revenue standpoint, yes. From a facilities standpoint, it's a challenge.
I think it depends who you ask in the district, because I would say from a teacher standpoint, no. I don't want, if my limit is 23, I don't want 24 and 25 from Yakima, because
Oh, right, I mean,
West
my
Valley's
son
great.
was in Apple Valley
Yeah.
for 2 years, and we were living in West Valley at that point, and yeah, he had over 30 kids in his class. And,
Well, and.
but there is a sign up, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We only do a sign off. It has to be
You,
approved.
yeah, if I live in Yakima, I have to go.
Oh,
get
yeah, no,
paperwork.
no, no.
Yeah, there's a
And
process.
it's a process, and I had somebody call me just yesterday that they're buying a house in the Yakima School District, and do you take out a district? And I'm like, well, here's the lay of the land. You're not getting into, some of you, you're probably not getting into what Apple Valley or White Hollow. The best that we can offer right now for this 3rd grader is, unless they test into PAL or a TAN, that's where they would go. And it's kind of space available, and I said, you can go talk to, in this case, Eva Less, the principal at some of you, and she's gonna tell you, I can't tell you until right before school starts.
Or even after Labor Day.
But that's it, and then there's the form process, so.
Is it fair to say the only out-of-district kids that are guaranteed to get in are children of teachers?
Or employees.
employees.
Employees, that's actually the law.
So,
Yeah.
That's the law, that's the
There's
law.
a lot of them out there. I mean, I just know from my daughters had several friends, you know.
Well, what did Mike report the first meeting? 160 out-of-district kids and 76 at the elementaries? Does that sound right?
I was thinking it was like 262, but
Yeah.
we can figure out that number.
Yeah, that, it's been presented. So we have a couple of challenges. We have the out of district, outside of the West Valley School District, we have some of those kids. And then we have what we call out of boundary, out of the elementary boundary. So you live in Mountain View area, attendance area, but you go to Apple Valley. So we have some of those things going on. Some of those are staff. Some of those are staff, and by law, if you're a teacher at Apple Valley and you live in Atana, they get to go to Apple Valley by law. So we have to do that, and then it's on space available, and so this is part of this is the challenge of the school board's policy as it is currently constituted, that when we were in the springtime looking at these issues, one of the things that it was hard for me to look somebody in the face, to be perfectly honest, is well, I live in the Apple Valley, I'm just giving Apple Valley, but I live in Apple Valley school boundary, and now you're moving me somewhere else, and you have all of these out-of-boundary people that are grandfathered in. Well, something doesn't feel right about that. So in addition to moving the lines around, which is going to be important, it's that problem doesn't necessarily solve itself without the school board possibly taking some action to examine that situation. Because if you're an out-of-boundary non-staff kid or out-of-district non-staff kid, it's a little bit it's a privilege, not a right. But it's not something that we've and again, it's easy to say in the room because it's not your kid, but when it's your kid, it matters. So it's tough, and I'm not the one that has to deal with the mom that's crying on the other end of the phone about their kid moving. It's tough.
Yeah, we had one year, 17 first graders that I had to say, you have to go to another building or back, and that's almost a whole class. It's horrible. And like he's saying, as a family, so we're very limited now on the yeses and the nos. We call them the innies and the outies.
And it's not perfect.
It's a space issue.
It's the space issue, and it's not perfect, and hopefully this fall we can with your help us come up with, okay, where should these boundaries be, take into consideration the growth that we know that's happening and so forth, and try to look at it, and transportation is an issue in this, and to say, we've already put everybody on notice this is going to happen. So, people can make their plans, but it's tough. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun.
Just another piece, I think Dave, you asked this, I'm sorry we're going on, but another influx we're finding this year is people who live in the West Valley School District, whichever boundary elementary school, and are returning from private school. I have more than I've ever had. They've never been in our buildings, and they're suddenly, we usually have this in first grade, or maybe second grade, where they've gone for kinder and a Montessori. This year I have possibly 10 who are in a variety of grade levels in our private school, either St. Joe, St. Paul, the Montessoris, and are coming into the public school system.
Yeah, Cottonwood had a large amount too.
Large amount. That's higher than we've ever had, and I know that we've spoken of this as one of the private schools is moving buildings, and I've asked some people, but that is the highest one we've had. That's a large influx. So again, that does not have to do with growth of a housing development or anything. Those are West Valley kids that have never attended our buildings and are now coming back for whatever reason. So another point to remind.
I think Heidi make a really good point. If we're looking at a data-driven approach, I mean, where is that data captured when we talk about the numbers of students when we're looking at elementary school boundaries? That's going to be...
Because they're the ones, unfortunately, we don't know about, until they show up. And
I mean,
ask
but
us
can you
that,
take
yeah.
that from that data or no?
Sure, we can, and we usually do, when we sit around as elementary principals, we
Right.
typically know our first grade numbers are going to have 4 or 5 more. This is just, I will have this data after the year, I'm sure the rest of us will, but this is larger than we've ever seen. And I know Eva's had it at Summerview, and these people, you know, they want tours and they're trying to
Because that's
decide that
gonna
they're
impact
coming.
the school board's discussion
Yeah.
on your policy on variances
Yeah.
and how you're gonna.
Well, I mean, the policy is okay. I mean, the policy as it's written right now is okay. It's how do we execute this in a way to accommodate these kids that we don't know about?
Yeah, those are the unknowns.
And then at the same time, then we have the issue of, well, if we have the room, we might as well take them because that's a good, I mean, you know, if we have the room, then, you know, it's a lot of different balls to be thinking about. Meanwhile, we have some schools that are bursting at the seams, some schools that we have some room in, and so we've got to spread that out a little bit. And again, I think spreading that out is part of the good stewardship of our resources. That's just my personal opinion.
And rather than change boundaries, I wish we'd look at shuttling kids too, rather than changing boundaries wholesale. We've shuttled kids in the past. I was at White Hollow and we had, I bet 15 Mountain View kids, first graders, come in to White Hollow every day. And it worked. You don't have to all of a sudden change boundaries. You have other options to do too. And shuttling is one of those. We're gonna shuttle to get the kids to town. And so you've got the buses running already. The other thing, you talk about out-of-district kids, where you get paid $6,000 for, but that out-of-district kids' property tax goes to the Yakima. It doesn't come from West Valley. Or wherever.
So, great discussion, thank you. Just my two last closing points. One, it's always going to change. That's part of the challenge, frankly, with what we have. And so, as we understand where we are today, as we do our best to develop a concept, a vision of where it's going, we're gonna have to continue to build in some flexibility because rightfully, our intent is to set up kind of a 10-year vision and to provide enough flexibility in that 10-year vision for additional student influx, to figure out how to right-size our kind of available resources that the kids bring along. So that's ultimately the goal, and that's where we're gonna find our success moving forward. If anybody's interested, if it hasn't fallen asleep, that's your demographic data. It's already, it's done, it's given up. Okay, so that's it.